Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie Pacific Rim Uprising. And I really enjoyed this film. It sets out and it knows what it is. Mechs versus Kaiju. And it does that very well. I feel that they did a good job with the story and that it doesn't get in the way of the action and the action doesn't get in the way of the story. It's just a movie that knows its main focus is to get the Jaegers fighting the Kaiju, and they do a good job of that. And they do a good job of doing some decent character progression as well. So, the film starts out pretty much giving us a rundown of what happened in the first film from the character Jake. And he's telling us that it's been 10 years since it's been going on, since the end of the first movie, and that he's been living the high life. We see him bartering for mainly food items like Captain Crunch, Oreo cookies, and Sriracha hot sauce. It was just really funny that he is so fixated on food. But, it continues on, and he's like, well, sometimes the best stuff's the most dangerous stuff, going into decommissioned Jaegers and taking out parts because, well, there aren't any Kaiju around anymore. But, hey, somebody might want to build their own Jaeger. So he's going in with this group, and they're, like, going through, and we find out that he tends to screw people over a lot. And they're like, well, we'll see what's going on. As they go in to get, like, one of the tertiary power supplies, because they take out the reactor, but there's other power supplies that are throughout a Jaeger. And he finds out that it's still moving, and we get this cool chase sequence, and he's able to get away from the people that he tried to screw over, and he sees this person go away on a motorcycle who's being chased as well. Well, he's able to get around and find out where they're at, get into their base of operations, which he does not get in stealthily, by the way. So the person should invest in better security measures, and we find out that it is this girl, Amara, who has built her own Jaeger. It's really small, but it's still a fully functional one that it only requires one person to control. But of course, the authorities have gotten there as well, and they burst out, and he's like, let me pilot this to get us out of here. And then of course they get, actual Pan-Pacific Defense Corps person, and their own Jaeger comes around, and like, get out of the Jaeger. Unauthorized staff is like, oh crap. Amara's like, she uses a kind of smoke screen, but she's not as versed in going against Jaegers as Jake is. And he has to use one of the cores to kind of disrupt the other Jaeger, and they almost kind of get away, but they capture him. And we find out that Jake is the son of Pentecost from the first movie, and knows Mako. Also from the first movie, and they've kind of got a brother kind of sister relationship. And she's like, listen, I can't get you out of this stuff anymore. You gotta re-enlist. He's like, okay, I'll do that. Because it was like prison or else. And he's like, I'll do it. So he's coming back into the fold to pretty much train new recruits. And they're taking the Amara girl as well. That's where we meet up with his other previous dive partner, Nate, who's played by Scott Eastwood, and he does a pretty good job too. He's more of the straight-laced kind of partner, whereas Jake is a kind of free-flowing kind of dude. And we also get introduced to all the other kind of cadets. Now, they're not as fleshed out as like Nate and Jake and Amara, but they do at least have some kind of presence. They're not completely like one-dimensional. You kind of get a little bit of development on each one, but they're mainly brought in towards the end of the movie. So we kind of see them doing all this kind of training and everything. We see Jake and Nate getting in their own kind of stuff while he's like making an ice cream sundae and drinking beer and all that. While we get to another portion with Shaw Industries and Newt, who's one of the scientists that had drifted with the Kaiju brain in the first movie to figure out all this stuff with the Kaiju. And they're evidently getting ready to launch a Jaeger drone program that'll pretty much make the other pilots obsolete, where they have, it's not completely explained, but they only need about like a group of people, like half the amount of people to drift in these drones, but there's a reason for that. And it's kind of funny, we see Newt kind of talking with Gottlieb, the other scientist, and he's trying to figure out other ways to increase the efficacy of Jaegers with like superpowered rockets that take rare earth minerals and fuse it with kaiju blood to make a reaction, which actually comes in later in the movie. Like, oh, okay. So, Maiko asks, well, pretty much corrals Jake to use Gypsy for the whole council meeting to approve the whole drone stuff and, just be that kind of, hey, I'm a Jaeger kind of thing. And while that happens, and while Maiko is trying to get there in a helicopter, a rogue Jaeger comes out of nowhere and starts firing off stuff at everything. It's like, holy crap. And it's pretty cool as Jaeger, too, how it's all dressed up. Now, I thought, I'm like, this looks kind of similar, like, what's going on here? Could this be like, I thought it was part of the drone thing, and we kind of see that as they're trying to figure out what's going on later on. Maiko tries to send some data on that Jaeger, but is killed in the process, and Gypsy kind of gets its ass whooped as other Jaegers are getting ready to be dropped in as the rogue Jaeger goes away. They're able to extrapolate from the data that there's this Russian base that matches the energy signature of the rogue Jaeger, and they go up to fight it, and that's a pretty kick-ass Jaeger fight scene that we get on. Now, this rogue Jaeger seems to be a little bit more advanced than Gypsy, but Gypsy, through the ingenuity of Jake and Nate as a team, is able to take it down, take out the core, and they open up the cockpit and find out that it's a kaiju brain in there. This then goes into the effect that we had seen that Newt had been continuously diving with Alice, another kaiju brain, and he has been infected with the precursors hive mind mentality and have used him to pretty much make half Jaegers, half kaiju beings. And of course, because of Maiko's death and what was going on in the Rogue Jaeger, they have decided to implement all of these drones, which is bad because once they start doing it, the Newt initiates his plan to use these kaiju'd up Jaegers to open new portals around the world and complete the Precursor's plan. And even though that's the basis of the story of the movie, I think that's a pretty good job and it's pretty concise. With these kinds of movies, you want the kind of plot that is pretty simple, that doesn't really get in the way. They did a good job with that, and it made sense. I'm like, there's got to be repercussions for diving with a kaiju brain, and there are. If you do it by yourself and without another human there, like Newt had been doing, he gets infected with the hive mind. And it's going, okay. And it was kind of cool seeing that the Jaegers, they are, there's bio of the kaiju and they're not just the brain, and they kind of like transform into it like crazy, which of course they take down the Jaeger forces to where there's only like 4 Jaegers left, and they open up these portals, but they were able to shut it down because the head of Shaw Industries is pissed off at it because she's like, I'm the smartest person in the room, but that of course led to this whole situation, but she worked with Gottlieb and was able to stop the drones and take them out, but not before 3 kaiju had made it through, and they find out that it's 2 4s and a level 5. It's like, holy crap. And they're able to extrapolate that they are, from all the other kaiju, that they had a plan. Jake's the one that kind of brought it up. And it's kind of funny because they're all converging around Japan. It's like, why is that? And you find out, oh, they're essentially trying to use the kaiju as giant bombs to unleash the Ring of Fire and terraform the planet violently. And it's a good plan. That's a good idea. Okay, so they then get into back to Gottlieb's idea because they need to get the rest of the Jaegers that they have repaired to Japan to stop them from getting into Mount Fuji. And they use the rocket idea of taking kaiju blood and rare metals to do this. And the only kind of Jaeger pilots that they have left are the cadets. So Jake gives his own kind of speech and everything, and they just go off and do it. There was a weird part, though, where they kind of used a meme for one of the Russian people, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know why it's in there, but okay. It didn't distract me. I'm like, okay, let's get this done. So we then get to the final action scene that starts going on, where pretty much all the residents of Japan, mainly Tokyo, because that's where all the kaiju are trying to get to and everything, are going underground and all that. They get in there and they start trying to do kind of different defensive maneuvers, putting them on the other things. We see Gypsy taking on this one kind of interesting one that can feed back kinetic force. That was a pretty interesting thing that they were doing. I wish that there had been a little bit more variety in what the kaiju abilities were, but it still kind of evens itself out. We get one that's able to do that, one that's a digger kind of thing, and one that's just kind of doing its own thing. So they kind of have it stymied, but Newt's then like, you know what? Screw this. Opens up this kind of rippers kind of thing, and all these things start flooding and take all the kaiju and fuse them into one big ass one that takes out one of the Jaegers and kills one of the pilots, and also severely injures Nate. And all the rest, well, it takes out the rest of the Jaegers as well, but most of their pilots are fine. Thing is, Nate gets injured, and Amara has to come in, and out of nowhere, the scrapper dude comes in, is able to take the last kind of rocket, put it to Gypsy's hand, because their only idea at this point, they'd taken out one of the brains, because it's got the main brain and then the three rest of the kaiju brains that it fused. They've taken out one of them, and they need to be able to take it out before it gets to Mount Fuji. So, Jake's idea is to essentially use Gypsy as a giant missile to take it out. I'm like, yeah, kinetic force-wise, going up to orbit, coming down at terminal velocity, I don't care what kind of kaiju you are. That's going to hurt you. And that was pretty cool, as they were able to get out with the help of Scrapper and use Gypsy as pretty much a missile to rip the giant, like, I think it would be a category 13 kaiju in half and stop everything. It was like, that's pretty cool. I can dig that. And we get to the end of the movie, everybody's kind of celebrating and all that, and we get Newt being like, they're going to be coming again. And then Jake's going, well, maybe next time we go after them. Kind of similar to the Independence Day 2, where like, well, now we're going to go after that. I'm like, okay, I can see that. That'd be kind of interesting to see what kind of new tech these Jaegers will then be getting, and how they could go on the offensive, and what kind of things could come from that. So, overall, I enjoyed this movie. Jake had a good character development, going from the person who's just out for themselves, to more of a hero, and dealing with those consequences, and seeing Amara kind of grow as well, and her deal with the powerlessness of how she lost her family to the kaiju and knew that they were coming back and wanted to help and fight them, to being a ranger and a Jaeger pilot. And just, it had good action. It moved at a good pace. I don't think it was too long, and I don't think it was too short. Usually with movies nowadays, you have to watch out, and that it's like bloat. You're like, okay, where's the dead spots? Where's the lulls? I didn't really feel that many dead spots or lulls in this movie. It just went at a good pace. It knew we wanted action with the mechs, with the Jaegers, and action with the kaijus, and it did it without sacrificing really a lot of character development. It provided us the impetus to keep the momentum going forward with the story arc, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they'll do with the next Pacific Rim. So, those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.